What?
What just happened? We need so many instant replays right now.
Well, clearly
we just got teleported into the future.
So this is your official Epic Chess replay of the most bizarre game of the 2023 Speed Chess Championship final. Now Hikaru Nakamura was playing white and opened with pawn e4. The GOAT of chess, Magnus Carlsen, responds with pawn e5. They get 5 minutes each on the clock, as you can see, plus they get 1 second back per move, which is called increment. We get something steady to start with, a Spanish game or Roy Lopez, but it soon turns bizarre. There's so many twists and turns to come in this one. Now a6 was played. For anyone newer to chess, why can't you take and win a pawn? Well, you can, but black then wins it back with queen d4, hitting knight, hitting pawn. So instead, bishop a4, most common move. We get knight f6 developing. d3 now protects the centre. Other ways to play for white, but this is a solid one. Magnus now goes b5, breaking the pin because there could be a threat to win this pawn. Now your own centre is defended. Magnus carries on developing. Both players castle. h3 played, gives the king some luft here. The German word for air, not that I'm a German expert as we've established recently. d6 now played, covering this centre, and there's now a threat to go knight a5, win the bishop. So you can go a3 or a4 as I was just drawing. You might see some paint on the board here because I just did a 16.5-minute recording on this thing and then realised the mic wasn't turned on. Always fun being a YouTuber at times. But what we see instead here is bishop d2. Stops knight a5 because there was this threat as mentioned, and now after h6, a3 also inserted, Magnus activates his rook down this e-file, supporting e5. Knight c3 now played, looking at this d5 square. Sometimes white goes c3 and knight beats d2 and manoeuvres and all that stuff, but not this game. Different plans. Bishop f8, always a grandmasterly move, opening the eyes of the rook. Knight d5 now played, and rook b8, a mysterious rook move, but not so mysterious. Magnus wants to take on d5 as drawn, bishop recaptures, and then there's no pin on this knight on c6 down towards the rook. So rook c1 played, looking for c4, takes, bishop recaptures, and knight e7, which you can do because of your earlier move. Bishop now hit, it retreats, knight g6 played, very standard idea, supports the centre, maybe one day you attack, and c5 is on the cards. So b4 from Hikaru, immaculate chess from both players here. Bishop e6, challenging this strong, long-range sniper. We get captures, rook recaptures, c4 now played, and c5 in response. Both players setting up the elongated bathtub, or you can also call these bayonets because you're going to stab someone with this pointy end here. Beautiful symmetrical pawn structure, but Hikaru breaks it. Boo! Magnus recaptures with the pawn, and queen b3 now played. White in the driving seat, pressure going on here, but queen d7. This is classy. Magnus activating, setting up potential attacking ideas. Think knight f4, rook g6. You can see where the queen's pointing. And after bishop e3, this really comes to the fore, because does Magnus defend this pawn meekly with rook c8? No, he goes rook a8, an active move. And if Hikaru takes this, pawn recaptures, bishop takes, well then knight f4 generates a huge attack for the sake of a pawn. This one is already loose, attacked twice. Plus the knight now looms over the ramparts around the king, rook g6 on the way, queen h3, it's really bad for white. So you're wise not to take the c5 pawn, allow the attack. Instead, g3 played, prepares king g2, keeps an eye on the knight hops, blunts the g file, and if rook f6 hitting the knight and queen opens here, well, king g2, like said, covers everything. So instead, Magnus's move, Magnus takes here, pawn recaptures, and now this is a sensational move. It's a positional one. It's not easy to spot. What would you play if you were black in Magnus's shoes? Well, the absolute best one is pawn d5. Magnus liberates that backwards pawn even at the cost of a temporary pawn sacrifice. And you do have to take it. You don't want to let black start squashing you. So queen takes was played. If you take with the pawn, it was possible, different lines, but still you'd have a trio of weak pawns. Magnus had ideas to win them back. And we see the themes here. After the ladies come off the board, rook a6 possible to dominate the file, but this one's stronger. Simply prepare to win that pawn. Rook c5 covers, but goes on to an x-ray with this bishop, we should note. It also hits this pawn. So Magnus defends that one. Okay, still the x-ray, I was drawing that one earlier. Now h4 is played, prepares to dislodge the knight, and h5 shuts that one down. Anything you can do, I can do better. Great rivalry between these guys. We get rook fc1 played, rook dd8, now opening the eyes of the bishop. So Hikaru comes to the 7th. This pawn now drops, and Magnus has got a passer. Could become dangerous. Bishop a7 nudges the rook to the corner, and now rook b7. This is the point. You take this b file, lovely pressure here, and after rook takes on d5, Hikaru sets up the kebab on the 7th, and now look at this for a move. Looks outlandish. To do this one of knight h8, stick it in the corner, horrendous piece, that's just not on the rim and dim, that's in the next universe rim. You are covering this pawn, but what horrible position. And Hikaru now throws more fuel on the fire with d4, activating pieces. If e4 from black, as I'm drawing, well then the knight can hop to g5, bishop covers d4, so instead we get takes. Bishop recaptures, you're no longer being eyeballed by that rook. Bishop f8 from Magnus, he's tucked down in his bomb shelter there, waiting for the explosion. King g2 and pawn b4. He does push that one, get it running down the board. That gives him counterplay despite the active white pieces. So bishop e3 played, allows the knight to now start hopping. We get rook ad8, knight g5 and bishop d6. Playing some tickle with this rook, because now the bishop drops back. Rook here, bishop here. Hikaru getting a real tickle in the armpit by Magnus, but he doesn't repeat. He goes rook c6, bishop f8, now brings the rook to the b file. He wants to fight. Rook e8 from Magnus, rook b8 played, offering the exchange. Magnus drops back, Hikaru declines. He's squeezing Magnus. Love this new Hikaru, reinvigorated, bringing the fight. He's not scared. We get rook d5 played. Knight h3 looks for knight f4. So knight g6 covers that hop. The knight comes back to g5. You can now go knight e5 to cover this pawn instead of this miserable one. But Magnus goes rook f5. We get rook b8 now. And finally, these cannons come off the board. A set of them. They're like ships in the night. They've been broadsiding each other, hammering away. Finally, we see a set come off the board. And Magnus now could hold the status quo. Rook d5, knight e5, that kind of thing, but he goes f6 and it allows knight e6, which leads to this liquidation sequence. The bishop dropping and now this pawn also. Material restored. And you look at this position, 3 on 3, minor pieces, rooks. Game's heading towards a draw, right? Well, wrong. We get some bizarre twists and turns now coming. So this part here goes on pretty steady. Both players just making a few nudgy moves, a few inroads. We still have a 2-on-2 now. The knight spins around, but soon the strange stuff starts happening. We're going to keep rattling through some moves here. This is a 161 move game, if you've got the patience, but it's worth it. And here we reach the moment. So the rook c4 attacks this knight, and what does Magnus do? Move the knight, of course, to e4, let's say. No, the bizarre stuff starts happening with rook e3. Now check out this clip from the commentators. They're a bit shocked.
He's annoyed with himself for having to be the one defending, or...
Whoa.
What? Huh?
Whoa. What is going on here?
We're seeing
What?
some kind of pre-moves, and maybe that was the reaction. He pre-moved bishop f2 or something?
So we need to unpack all that. After rook e3, a pre-move, leaving the knight hanging, Hikaru doesn't take. He seems to have pre-moved bishop f2, but there's no way to actually take advantage. You know, you can't check. If you go here, the knight still drops. So Magnus does this. You take me, I take, lovely. But Hikaru picks up the piece, of course. Now, amazingly, Magnus still gets the pawns. He goes rook g5 here, and you can't take the rook, or pawn recaptures. King marches in, you win the pawn or you liquidate the pawn, and you can never checkmate with just the bishop. So Hikaru keeps the rooks on the board. Yes, the pawns drop, but he wants to try and push with this rook and bishop. Now this is a draw. Imagine even the pawns off the board. It should still be a draw, but things get wacky. So first off, Magnus should hold on to his pawns, but somehow Hikaru brings this bishop around and starts pressuring the g7 pawn and actually makes some inroads here. Magnus somehow leaves it to go. Rook a8 was best. Technically can hold on to that pawn in a sort of drawing way. But okay, king f5 played. The pawn drops. What is going on? Magnus now just one pawn to the good. He's giving Hikaru chances unnecessarily. We're going to go through a few more moves here because around move 100, now it gets really odd. Rook b1, rook a6. We get to here, check. Rook a4, and now look at how the game ends here.
Hikaru just continues to, make those motions. I mean, I would be happy that I even have the extra bishop to begin with. I mean, what's going on here?
Yeah, the players are reacting to something, so it's like, I can't wait to see what it is.
What it is, yeah.
I'm wondering if there was yet another blunder. Because they have too much time to be flagging.
Yeah, I mean, if white blunders the rook, he actually loses because black has the f-pawn.
Maybe the bishop got blundered, and then now it's Magnus pushing with one pawn.
Oh,
what?
Whoa, what?
What just happened? We need so many instant replays right now.
Well, clearly
we just got teleported into the future.
We were lagging on like 20 moves, and those 20 moves were made, and Magnus lost the game.
What the hell just happened? What did we miss? Well, I'm going to fill in the blanks here while we see the crazy chat replay going on. So what basically happened was Hikaru starts bringing his forces round to the king side here, looking to corral this pawn, and once again, phenomenally, he actually does win this pawn, sets up this construction, wins the pawn, and now he's trying to press Magnus in this endgame, which is a theoretical draw. But trying to hold it with no time on the clock ain't easy. Now if it goes to 50 moves and there's been no captures, obviously there's no pawns left, then it's a forced draw. So Hikaru's playing against this 50 move rule. He tries to box Magnus towards this corner. This was all missed on the stream. It was lagging like hell. Couldn't be seen. We get to this position coming soon. Magnus gets to the back rank here. He is still defending. He's holding on, but Hikaru's trying, and somehow, amazingly, roughly around here, Magnus makes a blunder with rook b5. What should he have done there? Well, king a2. One example move of how you hold on, and then if a check comes here, you're prepared with rook a3. But instead we see rook b5, and bishop c3 is just a winning move. Magnus resigns, because you're about to get mated. There's a threat to go here, checkmate, and wherever you move this king, doesn't matter, you still deliver the checkmate, and the problem is, when the rook tries to block from this square, this is why coming to b5 was bad, well it can't do so because the bishop's on the square, they converge, the piece drops off, and that's a checkmate. Doesn't matter what Magnus does. Bizarre finish to that game. What a match this was. And if you love bizarre opening play, check out the video on screen, the playlist of wacky Magnus games which you'll absolutely love. I hope you enjoyed this video. Thanks very much for watching, and see you soon.